Chapter 7, Continuity Strategies. This is the section that people basically do continuity for, by and large. This is what the whole reason you did all this stuff before. You want to know how to fix it. You figured out what the problem was, and you're trying to figure out what am I going to do about the thing. I'm not going to tell you how to Google, but I am going to try to tell you what to Google or how to refine this. There are many different ways to arrive at these depending on the method. Now we're going to incorporate everything that we've done previous up to now. The first method that you can use is something known as the hazard-specific method. So we have hazard-specific. I'm not going to be showing you using exact numbers how I would math it out. I'm going to show you how to kind of arrive at this whole idea. The way that you will do this, you'd have that likelihood and consequence risk matrix. So we have a risk matrix. Okay, we have our risk matrix, we have our likelihood, we have our consequence. We have various things in various zones of this risk matrix. You may have something that shows, we had our lines, right? We had our lines in the risk matrix. You have any number of numbers, whatever, in this. You went from 0 to 5 or whatever. So you have your zones and your lines. And then you have various risks that were plotted inside this thing. So you had risks that were plotted there, or there, or there, or there, or there. What you're going to do, and this is something that I alluded to or explained in the risk matrix section, which would have been chapter 3 of the book, but the second section that we did. What you're going to do is you're going to target specific strategies that match the zone that the thing is in. Normally, we would extend this a bit, actually. So I'm going to very quickly here. Now, in this last zone, we had the contingencies are irrelevant. This is your apocalypse zone. Anything that is here, you should be looking for prevention or recovery strategies. So you're looking for prevention or recovery for anything in that section. Okay? You want to be able to make sure it doesn't happen, or you want an exit strategy. This is the stuff where if it hits you, there's no real stopping it. There's nothing you can do. It's beyond your ability to handle it. If you are a business that grosses $1 million a year, and then you take a $50 million impact, you're probably done. Right? We're talking that you're a business that has 5 staff members and 4 of them die. And the only person that's left is the person that works at the front that was hired last week. The business is over. Like this is complete obliteration, okay? You have to make sure that whatever is in here either doesn't happen or there's an exit strategy because the organization is over. That's this section. Anything that is closer to this corner up here, so anything that is closer to this corner, the closer it gets to that corner, the more you want to mitigate. Okay? You want to find strategies that can lessen the blow preemptively. You could also prevent this, that's fine, but you want to make sure that this is being mitigated. So when you're looking for strategies, look for things that are mitigating this. Anything that's down here, you want to prepare for. This is your stuff that is low frequency and high impact or high consequence. An earthquake that hits once every 100 years. You don't need to run daily drills on this. You don't need to have a specialized team that responds to earthquakes. You should have a plan for what to do in the event of an earthquake because it could happen. But you're not going to be spending an inordinate amount of money trying to mitigate an earthquake when, frankly, you might not even see it in your lifetime. It's just not going to happen. But you should have a plan, something in place that you can, in case this happens, do this, right? Something at all. When it gets closer to this corner, you want to respond. So anything that's landed closer to this corner, this one over here would probably qualify. You want to put something in place that is a standard operating procedure. That is a thing that we do all the time now. This is low consequence, high likelihood. Happens all the time, but it's basically a nothing burger. This could very well be an annoying phone call. This could be petty theft when you are a multinational department store, right? You should have something in place to deal with these very frequent, very small impacts, a response thing to do. So for example, one thing that large organizations have to deal with high likelihood, low impact events like department stores with theft is they have security systems. They have security guards potentially. They have people that respond to the theft when it occurs. This also doubles up as partly a prevention measure because it's a deterrent, but they have something in place to respond to the thing when it happens. Anything that ends up closer to this corner, you want to recover from. If the impact is low, if the consequence is low, and the likelihood of it occurring is basically never, is very low, just insure it or assume the loss. Do you really care if you are a $1 million plus business and you lose $10 once every 15 years? You don't care. So keep that in mind. When someone proposes a solution for something that is very expensive and they're very passionate about it and it's in this box, it is easy to objectively justify, why would I waste the money? Conversely, when someone discards a passionate call for some sort of risk control for something in this box, the person can objectively say, we should be spending something. Okay? So look at this and you can find hazard specific. So what is the specific hazard or risk, whatever that we're looking at, things that have their correct strategy. Also, if you've done financial consequences, so how much you expect to lose from this given thing, keep in mind that this is where continuity strategies is where cost benefit starts coming in. And you should not be spending more money on a solution than the impact is. Now, if you're spending, let's say, for example, the impact is a $10 financial loss, but 10 people die, and you want to spend $100 to prevent 10 people from dying, while that is technically a financial loss, you're probably not accounting for all of the other impacts and consequences of life loss. And it could be very easy to justify spending $100 to make it so 10 people don't die. Financial impact compared isn't the end all be all, but it can give you a bit of a guide for when a proposed strategy might be just completely unreasonable. So stuff to think about, okay? That's the basic hazard specific one. You can better refine what you're searching using this and then come to quick solutions or a quick menu of solutions to choose from and then choose the relevant solution you want. So that's this. Now we're going to start getting into the all hazard style planning. All hazard style. Take your criticality level. Figure out what level of criticality you're going to be planning for. Assuming you did criticality 1 to whatever, where criticality 1 is your highest priority, your first priority stuff, you're at minimum going to be securing to criticality 1. Okay? If you want to go to 2, then you can go further, but we'll assume 1 for now. Then figure out what your absolute budget limits are. This comes from the impact assessment. The impact assessment is going to have the expected impacts of what things are getting hit and how much you lose from the things getting hit. You should not spend more on your solution than the impact. If you do that, the continuity plan or program is causing more damage to you than the incident would. That is completely counterproductive. I have seen many continuity programs where the budget for the program is more than the impact would do by an order of magnitude. That is categorically asinine. Do not do that. Once you do that, then we get to play how do things fail ricochet game. So what you're then going to do is you're going to go to the critical resources and find all the critical resources for the criticality 1 stuff. You're also going to find out in timeline breakpoints the time that stuff needs to be available by. So at a minimum now, what you've done is you've found your given thing. Let's just bring out sales again, because I know that we love talking about sales. So we take out sales, okay? And I know that sales has these resources, whatever they are, that have to be up by this time, which is by, 1 day or whatever it is, okay? This will dictate if I were to make an alternate site strategy, or if I was going to do, I'm just going to buy the new stuff and reinstall it, or whatever. This tells me what I have to do at minimum for the criticality 1 stuff. That's our baseline. Okay. We are then going to take out our magical map of dependencies, which had arrows and stuff going between it. Right? We're going to take out that, and then we're going to find the criticality 1 thing in the map. So sales. And you're going to find out every way something can shut that down. So if it leads back to sales, which in this instance nothing leads back to sales, if it leads back to sales, you have to make sure that it's back up in time so that this is protected. So this thing, whatever this thing ends up being, needs to be back up so sales is back up in time, its resources are available at that RTL. If this thing shuts down a sales resource or shuts down sales, then it must be back up before this level becomes a problem. And you do that for every single section in the organization. That's making sure things are okay at criticality 1. So if this thing needs to be back up if this thing has a different critical resources that have to be back up by a specific time, then I don't really care. I care that this thing is back up in enough time insofar that sales is happy. So in your dependency map, you probably wrote down a time here. Let's say this was 1 week. So after 1 week, sales gets impacted. Sales has to be up in, we say, 1 day here. So this thing needs to be back up within a week and a day plus whatever time it has before sales starts noticing and it starts ticking down. Whatever that is. If you want to know how to go through this whole process again, you can look at dependencies or the combining the whole BIA section in the previous video. In general, though, this is the idea. You're going to find out how long it takes to shut down sales, and you're going to make sure that everything is met to meet that sales target. The combined cost of all of this needs to be less than this for sales. Because I'm doing a sales strategy based on the impact assessment for sales, and I'm making sure everything is operational again, so sales is happy. If my budget to fix this is more than what I'm saying, then I should just shut down sales. Or something in here is wrong. There is something wrong if that is not the case. If you have something that's criticality 1 like this, that's this important, this number is usually so unbelievably high that, and the solutions for continuity solutions are usually so unbelievably inexpensive. There's at least 1 or 2 alternatives that there should be a way this works. So many individuals just say whatever, work from home for things now that, you can do better than that usually, but there's something. And if that's not the case, something is very, very wrong. Anyways, This thing being back up in time for sales is going to be dependent on its critical resources being guaranteed for some sort of timeline. The timeline will change because its RTO will say one thing, but what I'm looking for is when is it up in time so this isn't affected. Okay? That will be informed by its RTO, but once again, this can kind of change a bit. If this is your only criticality one thing, then fine. If this other thing over here, if this thing was also important, so if this thing is important, then here, let's make another box. Why not? Let's make another box. So if this thing is magically important, then suddenly we have two things that are criticality one. And if we're maintaining a plan here at that level, we have to cover both of the things that are mission critical, okay? Add all the stuff together, figure out what the stuff you need to have by X date, and then look for appropriate strategies. If you have a very complex organization, this is probably going to look like some combination of alternate site plan and buying new stuff ad hoc if it goes down. When you're looking at alternate site plans, there are three broad categories of plan. We have hot site, warm site. Take a guess what the third one is. Cold site. A hot site, it's a location that you can go to that is almost basically a mirror of whatever you have. So it's like a secondary emergency location that people can go to in the case of evacuation, whatever, where it has power, it has internet, it has all the chairs you need, it has all the computers you need, it has all of the company-specific software and programming, access to your organization's private server, preloaded. This is the type of site where people can drop in and start work, and they're good to go. This is very expensive. But if you need to be operational as fast as possible on an alternate site, that is what you're looking at. What sort of things do I want to put in a hot site versus what sort of things might I want to bring out later? Warm site. A warm site is going to have your power, it's going to have your chairs, it's going to have your computers, but it's not necessarily going to have your specific company stuff loaded on it. This is the type of thing where you'd get an office space, it will have a whole bunch of computers available and it has internet and it's good to go for general work, but you have to bring in a connection to your corporate server. You have to bring in software and install it. It's like you have a fully kitted out room, but it's not kitted out to your specifications yet. That is less expensive than hot site, but it comes with accommodations here. Cold site is a warehouse floor with a power outlet. This is very inexpensive comparatively speaking. And if you're good at setting stuff up quickly, this can be useful. If you're the type of organization where everyone's just working off their laptops anyways, and they really just need power, you can actually work with a cold site. It depends. I've seen some organizations that are fairly large that you'd think would want to go here at hot site, but they're just basically mobile. They throw them in a warehouse, they're good to go. And this will actually just work. Depends on what you need. What you put in where, because you might have multiple sites. You might have, say, look, this is my critical process. I'm giving it a hot site. It's got to be up. I'm spending the money. Let's go. And when everybody else arrives, you down here, after all the pathways and whatever, it might just turn out that it takes a month for you to shut down the thing I care about. This is a warm site for you, even though it's a hot site for them because I'm not installing your stuff. You can figure out how to install your stuff in the alternate site within a month. Get to work. Right? You can have a larger building like that works like that. You can cater to one and have the other one kind of figured out because they'll catch up in time. This is the sort of thing that you can do. You can kind of multi-roll it. Now, by and large, if the cost difference between the two is so little that, why would you? Like, for example, if you have a thing here that's criticality 3, so you're not going to make it obsolete, but it's not like it's why we exist. The difference in cost when you're already paying for the hot site for this one and upgrading it for this is an extra $1,000. And the impact of that being lost is $10,000, spend the money, right? Like, you're already spending the money anyways. Sometimes you can make that sort of judgment call. Depends. You know, these are the sorts of just stuff to consider, because yeah, it's low criticality, but we can just spend the money as an add-on. Sure, just I don't want to deal with the headache. Stuff to consider. There is a fourth type of site, sort of kind of above all these, that isn't normally discussed in this sort of hot, warm, cold framework. That sort of site is a mirrored building. So it's kind of like a hot site plus. What some organizations do is they'll have a head office, and they'll build a second, basically identical head office in a completely different location, often on a separate power grid or even in a separate country, where they can lose basically this whole section and then this one's still operating. They'll half staff both of them. So they have two head offices basically, and at any time, if one goes down, they just fly everybody to the other one. They basically backfill each other. In tech, often a very similar thing will happen with redundant internet access or redundant data storage, where whenever something occurs on a server, it'll go into two locations. And then if one of the locations becomes compromised, the second location is just up and it can switch immediately. The data flow is mirrored. It's the same type of idea, but with people. So you can do that sort of thing as well. That gets really expensive because now you're doubling all your fixed costs, you're doubling your buildings, right? But you can do that too. So that is another option of something that you can do. So you're looking for solutions based on going through this sort of system. You're going to find exactly what your sort of price limits are, and you're going to find what sorts of things I want to target. The critical resources section, for all intents and purposes, is basically a shopping list. And one thing that people will often ask in a sort of situation like this is, what do I do? Like, what do I need to buy? Like, it gets overwhelming. It's like, well, you know, we made a list. Get this, you're good to go, right? Like, that sort of thing is there for you. Another part of this critical resources thing that you can't necessarily buy is you'll often have to list the human resources element of this, so the people that you'll specifically need in each given section. When you're dealing with people, so you're accounting for human resources and all that. Let's say that you have sales requires 4 staff, right? And within those 4 staff, they require 1 director or 1 manager or 1 person leading the sales team. So we have 1 leader in some form. And then we have 3 operators. We have 3 sales staff that do the thing. So we have 3, we'll say staff for now. You have 3 staff. The leader is going to have task-specific stuff that they are expected to do. The staff are going to have task-specific stuff that they're expected to do. Now, most companies aren't going to just field promote someone into a sales position because the client retention aspect of it is a bit too risky for them, especially when you're looking at business-to-business corporate sales. They want to make sure they trust you before they get you involved in any sort of their external relationships and stuff like that. It's a risky thing. But there may be certain aspects of these jobs where at a minimum, you want to make sure that they're maintained. So you're going to have some sort of what do I do sheet. You got to have some sort of, if I'm the sales leader, if I'm the director of sales, I need to do this in some sort of plan. They call these role-specific plans or job description-specific plans, or there's a bunch of different names for them, but basically it's the sheet of do this. What you want to have as a resource is basically a binder or some form of list of multiple pages that you ideally itemize and sort of every role in your organization and what they need to do in the event of an emergency that's hyper specific to their thing. And this can be very, very simple. This can be step 1, report to this job, telling you what to do. Step 2, check email. Step 3, in email, find this document. Step 4, read document. It says do your job, whatever it says. You might not have to be that specific, but regardless, You want a basic, I do this, 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 in the event that you need to field promote somebody because these people didn't show up, or in the event that they're just panicking and they need a reminder so they don't forget. Because stuff happens, incident happens, people react, you don't know how they're going to react, and if they have a do this, got it, right? I can breathe, I just do this, I do this, I do this, I have to contact these people, I'm good to go. You have that sort of sheet available. This is part of your critical resource strategy. You don't buy this, you make this. Okay? So that is just something else to consider. Another strategy that you might want to think about adopting is something called a war chest. Now, I've mentioned a war chest a few times before, but the idea behind a war chest is you have a bunch of money available in case of war, in case of incident happening, that you can spend if needed on whatever you need. It's a response-based strategy. It allows you to be kind of flexible. If you're not sure what you're going to do with some of this, you can say, look, I'm just going to war chest that. With Criticality 1 stuff, you generally don't want to war chest unless it's a sizable war chest or unless you have just so many different sorts of risks that it's kind of the analysis is overwhelming. War chesting is kind of I kind of don't want to say this, but it's kind of true. It's kind of a giving up on the analysis and we're just going to figure it out with money style solution. Now, that's when you apply it to Criticality 1. When you apply it to other stuff, you might say, look, Criticality 1 stuff I'm going to account for. The rest of it, I'm just war chesting. Which is true. You're just saying, look, I'm not going through the analysis on this part because it's not as important as the Criticality 1 stuff. I'm just going to war chest it. Fine. You can do that. It's a very reasonable strategy. When you don't spend money on developing a business, though, that is capital that you have basically sitting in an account. A lot of business owners will understand why that is a difficult thing to do because old adages like you need to spend money to make money. People don't generally like sitting on capital in case something bad happens. You can do it though. If you're going to do it, make sure that it is a sizable enough war chest where you can reasonably expect to do something with it where you think it's practical. What size is right for you depends. I would need to look at the individual organization. That's a much longer question. Anyways, it's a strategy that you can adopt. There's another method. So we looked at the hazard-specific method. We looked at the all-hazard style method. There's another method that you can actually do, which I've come across quite a few times. It's very interesting. You can look at pre-existing organizational memory. So organizational memory is a concept that basically means there's an organization and there's memory within that. The people in the organization remember things that have occurred in it. They carry with them in their head and with things they've written down, the history of their organization. They are this sort of very often untapped value that's sort of within it. What you can do is you can go to people and say, hey, do you have any other ideas that we just didn't approve of in the past that we want to kind of run through this model and see if it's a winner? Because maybe there will be things where, they had an idea that cost $10,000 and it only made the company $9,000. So it didn't get approved. It wasn't enough. Or maybe it cost $10,000 and it made the company $15,000, but they didn't want to do it because it was too much work, even though it made money, because there were other things that made more money faster. But when you run it through a risk model, it might turn out that that thing also reduces your risk of something. It might prevent a risk. It might have some sort of hidden benefit. So now this isn't just a money gainer, but it's also a cost reducer in terms of risk profile. This makes it a winner now. And sometimes you can have these ideas that just didn't make it across the line, or you had that old idea. Let's try it again. If you run it through some things, sometimes there's that extra benefit. It just kind of accounted for something, and it ends up being an actually much net cheaper solution than any of the other stuff you've already searched for, and it was hiding in somebody's head that's been working with you the whole time. Sometimes it's good to involve people in this sort of process to help with that sort of thing. One, it gives them buy-in. People like being told that you want to hear from them. It gets people more engaged with this whole process in general. Sometimes, even if you reject the idea again, just the exercise of going through it can pay dividends in the whole planning process. There's value in corporate culture and having people like each other more. There's all sorts of like little things that are good that can happen from just a simple, hey, do you have any, didn't you have an idea a few years ago? What was that thing again involving the thing? Right? Just sometimes just working that in, you come across a diamond in the rough, a little gem that you were missing, right? Sometimes that happens. So just wanted to mention that one because that one's, I've been surprised. Well, you would be, yeah, you'll see. It just kind of happens. These things just happen. Someone that you didn't know just boom, has this idea and it worked and it was way less expensive than the other thing. And that's neat, right? These things happen. So just give that a consider. Once again, take your analysis. So either if it's from the risk assessment or the risk matrix for the hazard specific stuff, or if it's working through the BIA, take your analysis, use that to inform what sort of strategies or solutions you should search for in a targeted manner. Weigh them against a certain level of cost-benefit analysis that ideally should be informed by some of these things you've done. It's not the be-all and end-all for cost-benefit analysis, but it is data that should assist with it. Take those ideas and filter them into stuff we are going to do, stuff we're not going to do, and stuff we might do later, it's just not over the line yet. And this is some of those things where we might come back to it because it was a good idea almost before, but not yet. So that's where sometimes the continuity process can kind of generate some of those previous ideas that come back around in the next cycle in this section, in that third method. So you sort them into those, and then of the stuff that you decide you are going to do them, flesh out those strategies because you're about to basically take all the stuff we've done before, especially the incident response stuff and the continuity strategies, and you're about to copy paste it into a plan. So you want to get all these strategies as fleshed out as possible to be ready to be basically copy pastable into something when we have to start printing paper and making documents. Yeah, that's basically the idea. So you've decided what you're going to do, whatever that thing is. You've costed it out. Okay, this is it. Really work through how that's going to work so that it's ready to go into a plan. And that's continuity strategies essentially, without getting into case-by-case specifics with you, because while I may be on your screen, I'm not with you in the room, or am I? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Okay.